Guillermo,
Mark,
what's up, brother?
good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, man. How we feeling?
Feeling happy today. Really am.
Feeling happy today. All right, good. You got a big smile on your face, and everyone on YouTube can see it.
Yeah, that's right. What episode is this of us recording ourselves with video?
4 on YouTube and 31 in on the Spotify.
Excellent. Yeah, it's
Episode 31.
a little different than the days when you didn't get to see our mugs, but
Right.
here we are. Here we are.
Faces for radio and voices for print.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
So
Well, what's on your mind today, Will?
what's on my mind today is an amazing subject for both coaching and therapy, which is the subject of ambition. And I think that there's a light side and a dark side to this word and to this. Well, geez, actually, going to jump right into it. What the heck is ambition? Is it a feeling?
Mm.
Is it a virtue? Is it
State of
a?
being.
I had never really even thought about it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really good place to start. And you know me, like identifying or defining something through what it's not, because I think ambition is often confused as just wanting more, right?
Mm.
And maybe to some degree that's accurate, but I think that's very limiting. I think it's better defined as striving towards something you believe matters. And that's where I think is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Almost like moralizing ambition in a way. It can get really nuanced because it can be both. I think it's just a matter of what is that ambition serving, because we've talked about values, right? We've talked about primary versus secondary values, and primary values, things that are almost like socially mandated in a way, or socially validated, things like wealth and success, which are good things in and of themselves. Comfort, even, I would define as a primary or a first order value. But second order values, things that sort of aspire to something greater. I think that's where ambition in its purest and best sense lives.
I like it. And again, I know I put you on the spot with the definition of it because I love the actual literal definitions of things, and so I can't help myself. And I'm going to share this with you because I think these two definitions actually highlight both the light and the dark side at the same
Yeah.
time.
Give me the
And
Merriam-Webster, Will.
there's a good old
Yep.
Merriam-Webster, okay? It's actually, so I was asking what the heck is ambition, but the word that it keeps coming back to and over again is it's a desire. So it's sort of a want.
Mm.
And ambition is a strong desire to achieve something, typically requiring determination and hard work. Okay, that's good. Check out the second one. Desire is an earnest, desire. Ambition is an earnest desire for some type of achievement or distinction, such as power, honor, fame, wealth, or excellence.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's right in there, kind of highlighting that there's some light and dark stuff going
Mm.
on with ambition.
Yeah. I had this thought um yesterday when I was thinking about this show. Um so Aristotle, right? The philosopher Aristotle, ancient Greek guy, he defined love in three levels. So there's three orders of love, right? And the first, maybe the most basic form of it, is love of utility, where I love you because you serve a purpose for me, right? Where like that's sort of superficial and probably not sufficient in terms of establishing a relationship and so on. So the second level is love via pleasure. So it's like I really like spending time with you. We have fun together. We do pleasurable activities together, and that's really great. Again, probably not sufficient for long-term lasting love and connection and bonds. But then the third order, I think what we should all aspire to, is love of virtue, where it's I love the youiest you can be. I love the virtues you possess. I love who you are, right? That's the third and highest level of love. And I think ambition, in a way, can be understood similarly, where ambition can really start out sort of the basic level is ambition for some version of validation. So that's the success, the love, the accolades, right? And then the second order is ambition for safety, where you pursue certain ends, you pursue certain goals because you want to establish this level of security in your life, in your family's life, maybe. Um, and that's a really great thing. But then the third order is the pursuit, the ambition for the purpose of almost like becoming who you are meant to be, pursuing the virtues and the values that you truly believe that are sort of core to your very psyche.
Well, now you're kind of almost sounding like self-actualization, everything a
Sure, it's
man
sort of
can be.
Maslowy.
Yeah, everything a man can be, he must be, and there is something to be said for just doing the thing for doing the thing's sake. Here's a great coaching or therapeutic question for you or for anyone to ponder. Would you be doing this thing if no one would ever know about it and no one would ever find out about your successful completion thereof? And that's a powerful question because it's like, well, what's your real motivation here? Is
Right.
this so that everyone can see you, holding the trophy at the end? Or are
Yeah,
you doing it for your own kind of sense of self-pleasure and intrinsic motivation? Like those are two different types of ambition because
certainly.
I do think that ambition is fueled by three different sources. And tell me if you think this is good or not. But first and foremost, I think you have just an intrinsic motivation of ambition. Like, I have no idea why I want to learn. I don't know. Name your favorite guitar riff. That's really difficult. Uh,
Uh, it's not
free.
Freebird, I'll just say that.
God damn it! I thought you were going to say Freebird. Come on,
No, no,
all roads lead back to Freebird. Anyways, you
probably
know what? I'm
probably
picking.
something in the Hendrix, Hendrix
All
book.
right, fine. All along the
Yeah,
Watchtower, right?
good.
And imagine just mastering that for its own sake and no one ever gets to know about it besides just you, right? That's to me a very beautiful ambition
Sure.
because it's really kind of an internal temperament of greatness. But then there's a second one, which is what I would call chip on your shoulder ambition. A chip on your
Mm,
shoulder ambition is sort of like I'll show them.
right.
And we can get into where that comes from in probably multiple episodes. But then last but not least was what I would call cultural ambition, especially here in the West, which we kind of worship progress and achievement. And
Right.
so now you're kind of getting into this keeping up with the Joneses or other types of comparison as a thief of joy. He
Mhm.
with the most toys at the end wins. Like, if that's why you're ambitious, all
Right,
right. I
right.
mean, I'm not saying I would rather somebody be ambitious than not ambitious, but to
Okay.
what end? And
Yeah.
what are your motivations?
Right, right, and I think, that, sort of, we've this hustle culture we've
Yeah.
evolved to embrace. I think so much of it seems to be geared towards the latter type of ambition that you were just referring to, where it's just get more, right? And it sort of cultivates this lack of contentment. And that's another area where I think ambition can be misunderstood because let me ask you, do you think ambition and contentment are almost like mutually exclusive ideas?
I think they can both work together because I think contentment oftentimes in just I'm picking on the culture that you and I understand,
Mhm.
Western culture, this idea of coasting. This idea of you not trying to get ahead in work. I deal with this every single week with executives who are getting to a point where they're like, I don't even know if I want to climb this ladder anymore. Because by the way, if people don't understand this, the way a corporation works, no differently than the military, the higher up you get in that pyramid, there's less jobs and
Sure.
there's less, and it's even more and more competitive and it's even more and more stressful. And people get to this magic, whatever you want to call it, midlife, where they're like, I don't even want that anymore. I'm just happy to coast, or I'm
Mhm.
happy to actually completely light my life on fire and do something like I want to own a boutique, and Martha's
Right.
Vineyard. And you're like, that sounds fantastic. You don't want to be this high powered person anymore. They're like, no. And then that's when somebody else can come along and say things like, well, I guess you lost all of your ambition and your drive. And you're
Mhm.
like, no, I found another magical thing called contentment.
Yeah. Okay, okay. So, could you also argue? Because there's a fella that we become friends with, family friends with, my wife and I. Very, very bright guy. He's probably in his mid-50s at this point. Several years ago, probably over a decade ago at this point, he was working for a corporation. He was offered a pretty high up big boy job that was going to require, it was really going to challenge him intellectually. It was going to require a lot of longer hours in the city and also some travel. and he elected to turn that down because it was going to take away from time he was going to be able to spend with his young family, uh, raising up his children and being as involved as he possibly could be. Um, and I think most people, particularly within this hustle culture, would suggest that that's the antithesis of ambition. But I would argue the opposite because that is identifying the thing that is of greater value and ambitiously moving towards, again, fostering the most from that, from his family, from growing his family in the healthiest, most intact ways he possibly could have or knew how to. And I have a hard time arguing that that's complacency, right? Because I think complacency and ambition could be mutually exclusive, but I think contentment, in a way, is almost like a prerequisite for
I love
ambition.
it.
Because in order to be truly ambitious, again, truly ambitious about a particular thing, you have to be content in in sort of actualizing that thing and moving towards that thing. Because in the absence of contentment, I think that ambition is likely to turn into burnout.
Without a doubt. Or again, you're not aligned if you're doing it for somebody
Right,
else.
right.
Again, like if you got the chip on your shoulder or you're just doing it because this is what everybody in this culture does, it's a culture of excellence or, oh, geez, another really scary one. What if let's say you're from a big family, like six children, and your five big brothers and sisters were all, I don't know, fill in the blank, valedictorians
Sure.
and fill in the, famous jobs or really difficult jobs. And you just want to be an artist or you want to be a poet or you just want to be a musician. And again, even as I hear myself saying it, just, even
Right.
just being, or
Yep.
I just want to be a kindergarten teacher. Like that word just, like that's really so, nasty because there's
Mm,
nothing wrong with saying, there's this word again, content being at this level, and whether that be a bus driver or a school teacher or a janitor or whatever it is. But here's the key is that my two favorite attributes and virtues are honesty and bravery.
mhm,
Are you really being honest? And are you brave enough to live a life that's aligned with your values?
mm.
Because if you can say, like, I'm not going to go and try to become, an astronaut just so that I can make my dad proud, or just because, they said that I got really good grades in school when all I ever really wanted to do is just be a farmer. That's
Yeah,
honesty and bravery. And
right.
so that to me, I don't think that flies in the face of ambition. I don't think
No,
it does.
no, no. But I think, our Western definition of ambition would certainly argue that it does fly in the face of what ambition of like striving for more status, money, prestige, and sacrificing those things equates to, I don't know, giving up. Is that the perception that I think we're walking around with in the West, or we've been tutored to believe? Because again, I think that's at 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 best short-sighted and at worst offensive, you know?
Mm. Well, and the other thing about this too is that like what's wrong with maybe just being, where does humility tie into this? What about just being a humble person that's just happy
Sure.
to not have to be there's a big funny thing they call, main character energy, a
Yeah.
person wanting to be a main character, right? Versus being an NPC, a non-player character. Have
Yeah,
you ever heard
right,
that
right,
term?
right, yep, yep, yep.
Where it's like, oh, that
All
person's
these
just a
Gen Z terms.
yeah, it's totally right. But it's like, it's interesting because there are a lot of people who are walking around as non-player characters. And, it's like, well, because they're not ambitious. And it's like,
Mm,
well, maybe they're just happy being, living a quiet, humble life and not needing all of this fame and accolade.
right.
You know me, I love word origins a lot. And so you mentioned the Greeks earlier. Did you know that ambition has a Latin root? And the Latin root of it, I can never say it correctly, but it's derives from the verb ambire,
I'm
and
very
actually
okay.
what it means is to go around. And
Oh,
why it means that is that you had Roman political candidates going around, walking around the city to solicit votes. And then the term later evolved
huh,
to encompassing things like flattery and currying favor and pomp. So it was all sort of like this word origin that had to do with a person trying to get more popularity or power.
right. wow, that's really interesting, and going around is I I don't know, it's, like, almost like circumventing, uh, attempting to do a thing in a roundabout way. Is that synonymous with creativity, or is it synonymous with something that's somewhat subversive and duplicitous, where, like, I'm trying to essentially get one over on you? Is is that an idea related to
Oh,
ambition as well? Does that sort of reveal sort of a dark underpinning of this word ambition? Um, I don't know. It's interesting, and we could probably play a lot of games with that. But words and just their relationships and their definitions. We mentioned the relationship between contentment and ambition, and I had this thought just now as you were talking. Can one be truly content without any ambition? Because
hmm,
again, if complacency and ambition are mutually exclusive ideas, and we can argue that complacency and contentment are not the same thing whatsoever, does one have to possess some level of ambition, some because either you're growing or you're dying, right? So does someone have to possess some striving tendency, some desire for to become more? It doesn't have to be to become richer. It could become to become a greater dad, to become a greater homeowner or something like that. I'm sure there's a million examples we could come up with, but does somebody need to possess a desire to grow in order to achieve real contentment?
hmm. Man, it's a hard question.
Yeah.
Again, because you know me, all roads kind of lead back to my coins, right? And I believe that we have a desire to make progress. And I always say that on one side of that coin is this striving energy, which you just used the word striving before, which is like, once I get there, it's just so
Mm.
kind of catabolic and kind of, and that's on one side of the coin. On the other side of the coin is becoming. And that's this sort
Mm.
of softer unfolding, which
Yes.
is
Yes.
again like to remind people, like, I think you're already great the way you are, but you could probably be a little better than who you were yesterday. So
Right.
two things can exist at the same time. Like you're already excellent. I could always be a little bit more excellent,
Right.
but you don't have to be. So again,
Right.
it's paradoxical that two things can exist at the same time because look, there's not going to be any freaking amazing prize at the end of all of it. Even if you become name the highest stature of anything, we're not going to remember you. I'm
Right.
sorry, but no one's going to remember you. I always joke to people, name your favorite emperor from these great ancient dynasties or from other empires. Like you
Right.
can't even name your favorite emperor who ran an empire.
Certainly not Nero.
Yeah, well, that's a
Right.
good example. But the reason I bring that example up is for people and their own egos and their own ambition, where I'm like, no one, even if you win the championship, the super, like who won the Super Bowl in '75? You don't know. And then even if you did know that it was the Dallas Cowboys, you're like, well, who was on the team? And I'm not trying to diminish that winning a
Sure.
Super Bowl is
Sure.
totally awesome, and you should be
Yeah.
ambitious to win a Super Bowl if you're a professional
With
football player.
apologies
That's
to Tony Dorsett and Roger Staubach.
exactly.
Yeah.
But no one's going to remember in 50 or 100 years. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, how many times have I said this joke to you where it's a little it's a little crude, but I can't help myself. Every single dead body on Mount Everest was once a highly motivated person. So
Yeah.
maybe calm down.
Right. Right.
That's sort of the dark side of ambition a little bit
Yeah.
in that crude joke.
It is, but, like, that's a really cool example. Because did those men, I think mostly men, there might be a few female bodies up there, um, did they die in a way that they felt was noble? That they felt it was truly pursuing a core ambition? Because I don't think you climb Mount Everest just for the accolades. I don't think you undertake something like that just because you're gonna get some applause when you get back to the base. You do that because there is something deep and profoundly driven within you that I think is true. Like, that's ambition at its finest, where it's like, yeah, I could climb Mount McKinley, or I'm not familiar with too many tall mountains, but it wasn't a matter of, eh, you know, it was just like trying to maximize the potential that they possessed. And
Ooh.
yeah,
That is a very beautiful way of saying it, is maximizing your potential, because
Mhm.
it's so interesting when you think about energy, right? You have potential energy and kinetic energy. And if you know you're this tightly wound spring, and all you need to do is, I think as all springs want to kind of be, they all kind of want to be unsprung, I
Sure.
think. You know what I mean?
They
And
just
so
wanna
if
be
this is,
wires again. Yeah.
I think if it's inside of you and it's burning inside of you and you want to let that ambition out, that's fantastic, right?
Yeah.
But if it's a false, if you're serving kind of this false, God, which
Yeah.
is like, well, that now they'll love me, or then I'll show
Right.
them, because this is a really simple three-part question that I'd ask you. And I'm not going to ask you for something that you're ambitious about, but I do ask my ambitious executives and entrepreneurs. I ask three questions. What do you want? So then somebody tells you what they really want, their desire. And then you ask, what do you believe getting it will give you?
It's a
And
good question.
really, yeah, and that's, they'll say different answers. And then last but not least, how much of that is available to you right now?
Mm.
Like, are you off searching for something that might already be inside of you and you just need to kind of let that out,
Embrace it.
embrace
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. And I think that's a really good final question, because is ambition just trying to fill a void, or is it trying to fully embrace what you already have, fully potentiate, manifest it in the world as a gift? Because again, contribution is as a core value. Really distinguish between ambition that is simply for the purpose of getting the round of applause and filling your bank account, and ambition that serves a greater purpose and that serves maybe a deeper value that one holds.
Well, if I could pick on me for a little bit here in closing, when I think about my writing, I do it for me first, right? I do it because it, if I was a musician, it made my toe tap, right?
Right.
I enjoyed the melody that I wrote. If I write a story and it brings me joy, that's my version of self-actualization, that I had that inside of me and I had to get it out. The cool thing about that is once I share it with the world, then it transcends me. So it's no
Mhm.
longer mine anymore. So now I'm moved into kind of a thing that's self-transcendence, which
Yes.
Maslow argued is even higher than self-actualization. But I
Right.
think the $1,000,000,000 question, because I do love quoting Teddy Roosevelt a bunch, which is to analyze this last part of this sentence. Teddy says, far and away the best prize that life offers is the chance to work hard at work worth doing. That can only be defined by the individual. What
Mm.
work is worth doing, for your soul? Because one person's ambition should not be another person's ambition.
Right. Right. Good stuff, Will.
Good to see
Good
you,
to see you,
buddy.
brother. Feel good.
Until
See you
next
soon.
time.
Later.
What's on Your Mind is a production of Oil Media. Subscribe for more reflections, blogs, and podcasts at oylmedia.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.